Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Organized Chaos Cafe. Today, I'd love to go and welcome my next guest. She's a transformational speaker and the author of the new book, The Quiet Achiever. It's a groundbreaking book helping introverted professionals redefine confidence, communication, and leadership on their own terms. And she is quite large in the social media space with nearly 1 million YouTube subscribers, over 2.6 million LinkedIn learning students, and growing communities on LinkedIn. It's amazing. She's also on Instagram, Red Note. Right now, she's also on Glassdoor doing an AMA, and she's become a trusted voice for driven, quiet professionals who feel overlooked and underestimated. And she's ready to help them lead with calm, grounded authenticity. Now, her background, she comes from a former Big Four CPA turned recruiter and global career strategist. And now she's helping thousands of people unlock their confidence, enhance their communication, and accelerate their career advancement through powerful storytelling and practical strategies. I would love to go and welcome my latest guest, Linda Raynier. Welcome.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, with your new book, first of all, I want to ask, what is the Quiet Achiever? Who are the Quiet Achievers?
Yes. So, I mean, for me, I've come, being in this world of career coaching and previous to that, recruiting, and then previous to that, working in the corporate world, I've come to learn that there's a group of people that have always been attracted to the work that I do and the things that I say. And they've become sort of my core audience. And those are people who I call quiet achievers. So, when you think about it, you break it up into two words. So, quiet represents those who are they're not as extroverted, they're more introverted, they don't speak up as much, they keep to themselves. I would surprisingly, people don't realize that I'm a quiet achiever. I'm actually someone who's very introverted and I prefer my own energy, my own time, my own space. So after having multiple conversations in a day, I need to recharge. So that is what a quiet person is. But achiever is the aspect where we are high achievers, we're goal oriented, we're very driven, we have dreams and visions for ourselves as to what we want to achieve. And so sometimes people look at quiet achievers and they underestimate them because they're not as loud or extroverted as their more charismatic counterparts in the office. They are overlooked and they are not considered for those promotion opportunities. They're not seen as leadership material. And these are the people who I want to support as I continue with the work that I do. And just simply because I resonate with them and I know exactly what they're feeling.
Right. And what are a lot of the feelings that these quiet achievers have that drive them into, I guess, that area of what am I doing wrong? Where am I going? How am I going to be able to get into these leadership positions? What are those type of feelings?
Yeah. So the biggest feeling, well, there's multiple actually, but the conversations I've been having, I've been hearing a lot of repetition, and it's that they don't feel that they belong in the workplace because they feel different. We're already naturally introverted beings as quiet achievers. So that means that we aren't going to speak out of line if we don't have to. We're not going to raise our voice and say something or share something if we feel that someone else has already done it. We try to preserve our energy. And so the feelings that come across at work is when they're in meetings, they feel anxious, they feel nervous, they're afraid to really communicate and articulate their ideas or their opinions, not because they don't have any, but it's more because of a fear of being judged or seen or criticized. And that I would say stems from one, it's still the introversion aspect is already there. So, we're a little bit more self aware, we're a little bit more in some ways self conscious. And then that then leads to the anxiety. And I don't want to say that every quiet achiever is, full of self doubt or insecure or self conscious, but there is definitely a population of us who, because of this society that we're in, where extroverts are rewarded and introverts are overlooked, we've kind of grown up feeling left out. We've kind of grown up always feeling different. And so it naturally then morphs into this insecurity when we're in a meeting at work or in front of senior leadership where we feel like we already don't belong. And when you walk into a meeting and you already feel left out, you already feel different, it's very hard for you to stand your ground and be able to say what you want to say in a confident way.
Yeah, I know even from my perspective, like I feel, at least at the beginning of my career, a very quiet achiever, right? And I characterize myself as an introvert as well. And again, it's probably one of those things where people are like, really? I'm surprised. But even with public speaking and whatnot, I mean, I didn't really start doing it until maybe 3 years ago in terms of the
Mhm.
whole journey of my life. And so it's a very, very small fraction of time that I've been able to kind of
Yes.
move out of that shell. But it is difficult. It's not necessarily easy and it requires a lot of work, not just from an action perspective, but from the mindset perspective. And I think that's where, at least from the book piece and providing that practical advice, is not just actions, it's also the mindset aspects. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. I mean, honestly, I feel that the way we communicate, that is just a byproduct of how we feel about
Mm,
ourselves. How we feel about ourselves is based on what we believe about ourselves. That's the root. What do you believe about yourself to be true? So we might have opposing beliefs. One on one aspect, we know I'm capable, I'm smart, I'm good at what I do. But then there's this other aspect that also questions that. But am I really that capable? Am I good enough? Am I better than or as equal to the individuals that I work with? It's there's the questioning piece, the self-doubt piece.
right.
And so when it comes to working on that piece of confidence and being able to communicate confidently, we have to first address the beliefs because this is what I know to be true. When it comes to communication, I believe we all have the ability to communicate naturally. Imagine, like, you're just in a group with your closest friends or closest family, you feel safe, you feel comfortable. So then, of course, you're able to hold a conversation, keep it interesting, be yourself, be authentic. But what I've noticed with a lot of quiet achievers is when they're outside of those environments, that's when things shift. They don't feel comfortable anymore. And that's when those insecurities come up. So that's where we have to go dig deeper. I'm not going to say it again to get to the root of it and ask ourselves, where did I learn this? So, for me, as an example, I grew up in an immigrant family. I was born and raised in Canada, but my parents were refugees. They came to Canada after the Vietnam War. They came with nothing to their name. So, they worked their way all the way to their own level of success. And growing up, they always told me, just work hard, put your head down, and you'll live happily ever after. Just work hard, study hard.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. But I didn't realize that once I got into the career space and the career world, that I needed to do more than just work hard. I needed to also articulate my value. I needed to update and give progress updates. I needed to present in a way that people would feel they could buy into my ideas. Like I need to learn all these other skills that I didn't have and I wasn't ever taught. I think a lot of immigrant children actually experience this. But then again, even those who are not immigrants or aren't really from those backgrounds, they also can experience this. And it's just due to anxiety, due to beliefs, due to your upbringing.
Right. And so, I mean, I was going to ask you those questions anyway, but around cultural expectations and also societal expectations, what have been both the positive and negative impacts on that? Because I think even for myself, I run into those expectations as well, right? Same thing. Work hard, don't cause a stir, just keep doing good work, and someone will recognize it. And that's how you'll be able to rise up the career ladder and such. And that might be true in Asia or in other areas of the world, but we find that that's a little bit different. So, how have those expectations either helped us do well or held us back?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an East versus West like differentiation in terms of how Eastern cultures are raised and what they're taught about how to speak up and not speaking out of line and not speaking above others who are hierarchy than you and showing respect. And then in Western culture, it very much is about no, say what you think, share your opinion, be assertive. And so if you grow up in an environment and in a culture that teaches more of the other approach, the Eastern approach, where it's about, staying quiet, being humble, keeping your head low, showing respect, then it is very hard. That's just you're programmed to function that way. And it's one where, I mean, back to your question, like it really is about knowing how you were raised, what the programming is, what the beliefs are, then really kind of reversing them out so that you can then learn the approaches and the techniques and the beliefs that you need to have in order to thrive in the Western workplace. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, part of it as well, I guess, is at least for the Eastern cultures, right? Is there's a concept of the bamboo ceiling inside of the West, right? And I'm always wondering, is it real? Is it something that's by others and by the external environment, by the organizations, or is it maybe from us, of us holding ourselves back and putting that bamboo ceiling in front of us because we're not doing enough to be able to break it, to overcome it? And I come with, I don't know, a little bit on both sides of it, but I
Mhm.
think there's so much here of from the quiet achiever perspective is how are we going to break through it ourselves, right? And not taking the
Yeah.
victim mentality around it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like that question. I mean, when it comes to this whole idea of bamboo ceiling, so for example, I just recently spoke to an individual who's a director. He's of Asian descent. His parents came here and did pizza deliveries and worked at laundromat, and but he became very successful in his career, and now he's at a director role. He eventually does want to move into a VP role, but he has said the words bamboo
Mhm.
ceiling is what's holding him back. And in all honesty, I'm not so familiar with that term, but of course I understand what it is. And I think for me, what's interesting is I've never actually seen my culture, my look, or whatever it is to be that much of a hindrance for me to be able to do what I want to do. And I think maybe this is just something I've always had, despite the fact that I've always had low confidence, or that I had low confidence for much of my adult, sort of young adult life. And I've had to go through this journey of overcoming it. But what I've learned and realized is it really comes down to how you carry yourself. And so if you're saying it's the bamboo ceiling, well, how are you carrying yourself? Like, the fact that you believe that there's a bamboo ceiling tells me that there's some beliefs that you have within you that are aligning yourself with this idea of a bamboo ceiling. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? So you have to be able to see that a bamboo ceiling exists for a reason within you. And then it's part of subconsciously, that's you're acting that out, that, okay, oh, they're not including me because I'm Asian, or they're not including me because I'm different, or whatever the reasons are. And then instead, the shift would be if you didn't even acknowledge that a bamboo ceiling existed. And it's more about, how can I include myself in the conversation in a way that they'll actually hear me? How can I include myself in a conversation in a way that they'll buy into my ideas? How can I get to know them a little bit differently or a little bit better so that they will give me the opportunities that I want? How do I ask for those opportunities?
Right.
It's more then becomes more tactical rather than this, perception. And then, because the thing is, it doesn't help to hold on to this perception and this belief that's not going to necessarily help you, because then you're feeling like you're working against something, versus it's like, okay, I don't know if that exists. It could, it might not, but you know what? I'm going to do what I can to get myself to the level that I want. And I'm going to articulate myself in a different way. I'm going to show up differently. I'm going to improve myself different in new ways. And then from there, let's see what the results are.
Right. So it's almost like saying that if you believe there's the bamboo ceiling, a self fulfilling prophecy where you will do the things to almost prove that it's there. And it's whether you become problem oriented around trying to figure out the problem, or solution oriented of what am I doing things to actually move myself forward versus focusing on just the problem that may or may not actually exist.
Yes. And of course, I want to caveat this to
Yeah.
say, like, of course, there are going to be environments that are toxic, that maybe there's discrimination or racism, and that absolutely does exist. And of course, if you're in an environment like that and you know that that's rampant, then perhaps that's not going to be the most nurturing environment for your career. But if you've worked your way up in this organization and you've gotten to this certain level, then clearly they see value in you in some way, shape, or form. So why not move up to the next level? Why would it be difficult for you to move up unless you're holding yourself back and believing something about yourself that's then causing you to communicate not in the most effective way, that's causing you to show up in a lesser than approach?
Mhm.
Ultimately, it's the beliefs that then dictate your actions. It's the beliefs that you hold that then dictate the way that you communicate and articulate.
Right. And like any good question, the answer is always it depends, right? There's a lot of context involved with it. And there's things in the environment that may or may not be true, especially if there's a toxic environment or whether it's perception, right? We have to be able to kind of figure those pieces out. Now, you earlier mentioned some pieces around like you had low confidence before. So, what
Yes.
fears did you have to overcome in order to build that confidence? Because I think that's something that people struggle with. Even the project managers that I help coach, they don't have confidence in necessarily showing up in front of the executives or confidence in being able to go and deliver their projects. So, for you, what have been those fears that you've had to overcome?
Oh my gosh, so many. So many. And so here's the thing about fear-based beliefs is that once you really are able to work through them, you actually forget that you had them. Like, it's weird because I see everything in terms of
Right.
energy. And so if you're projecting a certain energy, it's because you're carrying a certain energy, and the energy is made up of beliefs. Again, my whole thing is all about beliefs. The quiet achiever is also about beliefs, and I teach you how to like work through those fear-based beliefs. But
Mhm.
the fears. So if we talk about the most basic thing is, I mean, at the most core level, 99.99% of the world questions whether they're good enough in some way, shape, or form in a certain area of their life.
Right.
Some of us are able to just acknowledge that, okay, yeah, I struggle with that, but you know what? I'm going to do what I need to do. And they kind of overhaul it. It doesn't bother them. But for, I would say, quiet achievers, we're a little bit more sensitive. We are people who, we really feel our emotions. We're deep thinkers. We're overthinkers at times. And so when we feel uncomfortable within ourselves, it overtakes us. So the self doubt and the questioning, am I good enough, has been something that I've struggled with, like, I would say since childhood, that I've had to really, pick at and take apart and pull the threads apart one by one. And the way to do that, as I teach in the book, is something I call the flu method. Flu, as in, so when you think of, when you have a flu, what do you think of? You think of, okay, I probably have a fever, I'm burning up, and then I'm sweating and your body is trying to detoxify. It's trying to get rid of the virus or the infection. That's flu. And so I actually think of fear based beliefs being very similar to that. If you want to get rid of a fear based belief, you need to activate it and get it to sort of come out of your body, just like a fever, just like a flu. So what I mean by that is F stands for feel, which means if you're feeling uncomfortable because of a belief, feel it. Allow yourself to feel, let it flow through your body. That's the first, is to fully feel the emotion, the uncomfortable emotion, whether it's self-doubt, it's self-criticism, judgment, whatever it is, disappointment, guilt. And then from there, L stands for label. What is the feeling that you're feeling? So I just kind of labeled it myself. I said it could be, self doubt, it could be disappointment, guilt, shame, whatever.
Mhm.
Label it, acknowledge what it is. Then the last part, U, is understand the underlying belief. So that means figure out what is the underlying belief that's causing me to feel this way. You would not have any feelings about something if you didn't believe something about it.
Right.
So as an example I always give is like, I have this water bottle here. What do you feel about this water bottle? Probably nothing, right? Like, it's like, I have nothing because you don't have any associated beliefs. But if I all of a sudden ask you, oh, if I said the words Donald Trump, you might have a certain feeling that comes up because you have potentially certain beliefs, whatever the beliefs are.
Right.
So it's, you have an emotion, your emotions and feelings are based on beliefs.
Mhm.
And so it's only until we can uncover the belief and say, oh, I am feeling disappointed, or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling anxious because I choose to believe blank. What are you choosing to believe? And this is the key that I also teach in the Quiet Achiever, is that beliefs are choices. Even though you don't realize that you've chose to take on that belief, they are a choice. Even though they're subconscious, you're choosing to continue to hold on to them at that level.
Mhm.
And so it's only until we bring it to the surface, we acknowledge it, that we can then say, okay, I choose to no longer believe in you. I choose to no longer hold you in my system, and I'm ready to let you go. And I acknowledge that you no longer serve me. I understand that I grabbed onto you because maybe you were passed on to me by my parents, you were passed on to me by friends and family or whatnot, something in my childhood, some trauma. But now I'm choosing to no longer hold on to you, and I'm choosing to replace that belief with something more positive that's more aligned with what I genuinely feel is going to help me.
What was the biggest belief that you had to let go of?
That's a great question. The biggest belief that, if even recently actually, is that my value comes from how much I make.
Mm.
Because that has been something that, as a child of immigrants who've worked under the table, that you make was subconscious. And so for a very long time, especially because when I, first started my business, and then over the years it's become successful, and there were a lot of like rewards from that. I identified with, okay, the money that I make is how valuable I am. And I've had to let that go because that was driving me insane.
I know, especially when we're building up businesses, right? It's like, hey, we might not be making money all at the rate that we want to, but it's a part of growing the business, right?
Exactly. It is. It's absolutely. And the thing is you'll make more and more easily when that's not even in play, when that belief doesn't even come into play, where it's like, no, I value myself. I value the work that I do. I value the people that I work with, and I'm offering value, and I'm doing it from a place of grounded confidence. Then, the whole money aspect, it doesn't even, like, it'll flow. And I know that sounds so crazy because everybody says that, but that is something that I'm seeing firsthand for myself now that I've shifted into, okay, I'm valuable as I am. And it doesn't matter what the outside looks like, because I know that I'm carrying myself with this certain level of energy. And I know that ultimately what's meant to come to me will come to me. And I know that's really hard when you're in this space of like, oh, I'm only as good as the money that I make. I'm not making enough money, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're feeling uncomfortable in that, it's great to explore that. Okay, why are you feeling uncomfortable? Maybe there are tweaks that you need to do to your business. Maybe there's this and that we need to work on. But if none of that is true, then it really does come down to, are you just feeling insecure because you're tying your self-worth to money?
Right. Right.
And really working through that. So it's, the thing with a belief is that it has so many different facets. It's like this diamond that has all these different facets to it. You might work off a certain belief on one facet, and then you'll see, oh, wait, there's a whole other layer that I still have to work through because it's still murky there. I have to polish that now. I have to polish this now. And so you're polishing, working through it until finally I feel like I've gotten to a place where it's like I'm confident in the value that I bring, and I know that that's bringing me what I need in terms from a financial perspective, but at the same time I'm also not, my worth is not equivalent to the money that I make.
Yeah, it's a much better analogy using a diamond rather than onions to to describe that.
That's true.
So, if money no longer defines your value, has
Mhm.
there been a different definition of value that you've been able to come up with or replace that?
The value that I've really honed in on is knowing I'm valuable as I am, no matter what I have, no matter what I'm doing, no matter who I'm with, no matter where I'm at. So, me as an individual, I am valuable.
Mhm.
I have value. That is ultimately where I don't know if I can honestly say, yeah, I'm there, because it makes me sound guru like, but this is the place that I've had to remind myself to get back into, is that I'm valuable as I am. And this is where it also helps when you're working with people or you interact with people who clearly don't see your value. You can sense that they think that you're not valuable enough for them and or to be around them, or and I've had instances like that, not very often, thankfully, but that also, when you have a strong sense of value within yourself, you also know that those aren't the people that you want to interact with, because
Mm.
clearly, why would you associate with people like that? Because your value, you know what it is. You don't want people that don't understand that. And so what's going to happen is, as you know your value more, the people that are meant to come to you and are meant to help you and support you, and you're meant to help as well, they'll be more magnetized to you
Yeah.
because you know yourself. You come from that more, rather than seeking for, oh, do you approve of me? This is very subconscious. I did this all the time. Do you like me? I'm not saying this out loud, but I'm doing it when, like, in the past, so I would post something. Do people like it? Did they comment on it? Are people, what are they thinking of me?
Right.
And sometimes I still catch myself doing that, so I know that I'm not there yet. But ultimately it comes down to, do you know the value that you have, the worth that you have, the mission that you have for this world on this earth? Do you feel that within yourself? And if you don't, that's a great place to start really digging up and feeling that, getting clarity on that, because then everything you do after that will start to flow.
Yeah. No, I definitely resonate with you there because I mean, when people talk about you're bringing in the right people and you're vibing with someone, right? I mean, scientifically, it's just that if you have two different frequencies, let's say tuning forks and whatnot, you can see that energy start to go and continue to go and grow, right? Because they are resonating at the right frequency together. And I feel like it's almost the same thing as people. Like, you can know when you're meeting someone and it feels very performative, right? That
Yeah.
they're waiting for you to say how many followers you have, how much money you're making, what title do you have, how many people you've met, and whatnot. And you're kind of like tuning out. You're not really sitting there, really listening to what they have to say because now it all of a sudden feels very transactional where they're looking at you and saying, well, how many dollars can I extract from you or grow with? Right. And again, I've probably the same as you is like those are byproduct things of building, not the goal.
Yes, exactly. I agree wholeheartedly. It does feel very icky to me when you can sense that from
Mhm.
someone, where they're looking at you based on, yeah, how many dollars are you bringing in for yourself? And do I want to associate with you based on that? Like, that is something that I'm very clear that I don't want to associate myself with in terms of individuals like that.
Right. No, absolutely. Now, if we go back to how a lot of project managers I've seen work, right? We're also very tactical, but part of the pieces are they don't get promoted sometimes because they're told they're not strategic enough. They don't have those leadership skills to break that mold out of the tactical areas, even if they are delivering these projects very well, right? So, what would you say would be the three biggest tips that you could offer the quiet achievers, the project managers who are in the trenches doing the work, executing all of the things, but then just getting thrown back in there.
Yes, love that. So this actually ties in with the program that has literally just started to be born coming off of the Quiet Achiever, in the sense that like the Quiet Achiever, the book, has now sparked interest from people in my circle and in my, the followers, in wanting to work with me. And so I've had to identify for myself what are the phases that I could support them through.
Mhm.
And because I've done this in the past, I know what works. And so the first tip I have is to get clarity on that ideal version of yourself. Because right now, as you are right now, Ben, you are a certain version of yourself, but there is a version of you. And I believe in multiple timelines and parallel universes and all of that.
I
So
believe in the multiverse, absolutely.
yes. So I'm bringing that to, if people align with that or not, but I believe that there's a version of you out there that exists that is confident, that is speaking as in a calm way, that is leading others, that is, really owning your worth, and people are listening and they're following your guidance and you're able to influence others. There is a version that exists. And if you can imagine that version of you, that means that person exists. Because if you can imagine them, that means I would say tune into how does that version of you speak? How does that version of you appear every single day? How does that version of you interact with others? How does that version of you, present or walk or look? All those aspects.
Mhm.
Imagine them, visualize them, get clarity, and know that you can be that version, that you can call in that version. So that's the first tip. The second phase from there would be then to, once you start imagining that version of you and start to get familiar with him or her, you will start to experience resistance, because there will be a part of you that says, oh, even though I want to be like that, I can't because, and insert the underlying belief that comes from that. And that is the great place to start digging deep and uprooting those beliefs. So one by one, oh, I'm feeling I can't articulate as well because blank. Oh, I feel like I can't speak up in meetings because blank. What is it that is sitting underneath the reason why or sitting underneath the fear? What is the reason that's causing that fear, that anxiety? Start to dig them up one by one, uproot them, feel them, label them, understand them. And then from there, hopefully it's going to dissipate. Okay. But that's going to be an ongoing process for a long time. It could be whole life,
Yeah.
as I'm learning. But that's fine, because as you clear more and more, you do start to feel lighter. And you'll notice that you start to embody that version of you more and more, that ideal version of you. And then the third phase would then to be acted out. So really, not only just sitting there imagining and then working through the beliefs, but now you need to start implementing and acting like that version of you.
Right.
Speak like they would speak, walk like they would walk, dress like they would dress, do all those things, show up in a way that, you're stepping into that version, and you will see your external world will reflect that, because the way that you feel, your state of being, is actually what reflects into your external reality, and that will be projected back onto you. And then over time you'll be like, I am living the life that I wanted, or the version of me that I wanted. And I mean, I think this everyone can relate to, where you are right now, you had once imagined. So if you really think about it, you are living the reality that you asked for at one point.
Right.
Even if not everything is amazing, but there's parts and aspects of that. Like, I think everybody, there's, areas to improve, but that just means that's how powerful we are. We are actually creating our reality. We are creating our personas. We're creating our characters every single moment.
Mhm. No, it feels like a science fiction movie almost of I'm going to think of a different timeline, I'm going to look for them, and then I'm going to pull them all the way from there and put them here because this is where they should be. This is not that new timeline we should be existing in. Even though there's other things in this timeline that I don't like, I'm sick of, we can at least try and do it for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Honestly, this whole talk of timelines confirmed for me that this totally exists when my husband healed
Right.
from cancer. Because I told him, I said, there is a timeline where you heal, where you're healthy. So we're going to go on that timeline. We're going to jump on that timeline. And I swear to you, that's literally what we did. I know we did that because I know that there's probably another version, another timeline where that didn't happen.
Right.
And that we can get into that if you want, but that's actually where for me it really began, where I was like, okay, this whole idea of timelines is real.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that, I mean, it sounds like a lot of it is the identification for yourself of who do you want to be, bringing them here, and then actually acting upon it is really where a lot of the project managers, a lot of those quiet achievers can hopefully use this to help be who they want to be. And even for me, I'm going to be starting up a program later next year, helping a lot more project managers inside of the group coaching program to discover those type of areas, right? Like their avatar, their leadership avatar. Who do they want to become? And helping them come into this timeline, hopefully.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So, with your book, when is it coming out? When can people order it? How do they order it?
Yes. Okay. So it's available for pre order right now. And this is the time if you want to get a lot of bonuses, because I won't be offering these bonuses after the book is officially out. So up until October 14th, if you pre order the book, you're going to get $1,000 worth of bonuses. And I mean it, because one of the biggest bonuses is my top notch interview course. That is my best selling course that I sold for years and years, and it's helped thousands of people to land job offers, had thousands of people take that course. And so if they want to, let's say they're looking for a new position, they struggle in their communication, then the top notch interview will help you with the storytelling, with how to sell yourself, how to communicate in interviews. And that's free. It's a $700 course, but I'm giving it for free for anyone that pre orders. So there's the value there. And then plus, there's a whole bunch of other add on bonuses: Master Speaking Up at Work, a PDF that I have. There's a live workshop that I did earlier in August that's in there for also speaking up. So as long as you pre-order now, you'll get access to all of that. And that's, the website is lindarayner.com/book. Rayner is spelled Raynier. So lindarayner.com/book. You can head on over there, step one, step two, and order the book. I'm also, once the book is out in October, on October 14th, on the 19th of October, I've already confirmed that I'll be at the Sherway Gardens Indigo doing a book signing.
Oh, nice.
So I haven't, this is the first time I'm announcing it, but I will be announcing it fairly soon, so that people can add it to their calendars, and hopefully we can meet in person and do, if you bring your book or if you buy the book at the store, I'll happily sign it and take a picture if anyone wants that.
All I'd say is for those who do pre-order the book and want to get it signed, go out and meet the people, go and talk to them. We're not like celebrities that sit out there on high mighty towers or anything like that. We want to be able to go and talk to you and have relationships and be able to move beyond just the online environment, right? So I'd say if you're in that area, go and find Linda, get your book signed, have a bit of a conversation, take that picture.
Yes, I love it. I know, quiet achievers. I've noticed, obviously, because we're introverts, we really don't show up, even online. We don't show up very much at all. And so I would love to be able to meet people in person and, just have that chat. And I'd love to hear how people feel about the book too. Once it's out, please put a review on Amazon. Would love to hear what you think.
Yeah, and if anything, this is a challenge. This is your first challenge for the quiet achiever is to show up at her book signing.
Yes, exactly. Show up at my book signing, and that's your first step to stepping out of being an insecure or maybe like, doubtful quiet achiever to one who is confident.
Excellent. Well, we'll throw all of those links into the show notes for our audience to be able to go and take advantage of. And thank you so much for all the bonuses. And most of all, thank you so much for coming on to the Organized Chaos Cafe. Love to be able to go and help more project managers. I would say a lot of them are the quiet achievers. So I'm hoping a lot of them can achieve a lot more. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben. I love chatting with you.